Hello, sword people. Welcome to the Sword Guy podcast. This is your host, Dr. Guy Windsor, consulting swordsman, teacher, and writer. Join me for interviews with historical martial arts instructors and experts from a wide range of related disciplines as we discuss swords, history, training, and bringing the joy of historical martial arts into our modern lives. I hope you enjoy this greatest hit episode of the show. You can find all the episodes at swordschool.com/podcast, and there's a direct link in the description to this episode's show notes. On with the show. I'm here today with Jared Kirby, who is a fight director, stage and screen combat instructor at the New York Combat for Stage and Screen, a stuntman on shows such as Law and Order, The Equalizer, Bluebloods, and Gotham, Maestro with the Martinez Academy, editor of the first published translation of Capoferro and of the republication of Angelo's The School of Fencing, and of Vincentio Saviolo's Of Honour and Honourable Quarrels. He also republished McBane's The Expert Swordman's Companion and has co-authored, with Seth Dewar, Staging Shakespeare's Violence. He was one of the founders and organisers of the International Swordplay and Martial Arts Convention, my first international gig back in 2001, which morphed into CombatCon, which he continues to run. Of course, his greatest claim to fame is that in the year 2000, he beat me in a longsword duel to win full membership of the Dawn Duelist Society. And what could possibly top that? So, Jared, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
It's nice to see you. Just a bit of background for the listeners. Jared and I are obviously old friends, and we talk on the phone about once a year or so. So this is sort of like the continuation of a 2.5 decades long conversation. So we'll try and make it, accessible to the layperson.
I know.
So my first question.
We both had so much hair back then.
Yes, we did. All right. So my first question: whereabouts in the world are you?
In the New York City area.
Okay. And what brought you there?
If we go back to when we first met, I had actually moved to Scotland to train with Paul and the Dawn Duelist Society and get some actual training because Tim Rozicki and I had been kind of playing in Minneapolis for years because he had met y'all back in, I think, 96.
Something like that.
I remember right. Yeah, and then when he came home, he brought me a sword from Scotland.
What a nice man.
I thought so too, and it probably took me like 15 years to realize it was actually kind of selfish because he wouldn't have had anybody to play with if he didn't bring me a sword.
Yes.
And I'm like, but I still have it. I can pull it out. It was the most beautiful thing in the world. And really, it's just an Italian foil guard with an epee blade slapped together. Oh, and, God. We look at it now and go, oh, what is that? And I'm like, it's a precious memory.
And 25 years ago, that was what we had.
Yeah. And then to boot, he hand-stitched a leather wrap around this crappy plastic Italian foil grip.
Bless him.
I love that thing. And so we had been playing around, but it's really not an art you can teach yourself. You need teachers, and so that's one of the reasons that I moved to Scotland to study this.
Although those teachers had actually taught themselves, right? Paul and I taught ourselves all of this.
Yeah. In that way, it's not like I was going. It wasn't this idea of at that time. It wasn't this idea of, oh, I have to go seek out masters and all this. Mm-hmm. I just needed people who knew more than me.
Yeah,
because I had run into my wall, my personal limitations, and realized I wasn't getting any better. And so I knew there were people in Scotland that knew more, and this is really the internet. We were just all getting started on the WMAW Yahoo group in 95, I think. And so off to Europe I went, and thank God I did, because got to meet you and Gareth and Paul and all the boys and gals, and we had amazing times and did stupid things. And
we're gonna return to what we got up to back in the 90s in our foolish younger days. But what took you to New York?
So Scotland's the important part of that, because the 99 Paddy Crean event brought people to Edinburgh. They hosted the event there, and that's what brought Maestro Martinez and Maestro Costa Martinez over, amongst other people, and that was the first time that I met them. And
was it really?
Yeah,
because I remember that sort of Paddy Crean period. Where we had a whole bunch of extra sword people. Yeah. Okay, so where was the first time?
I gotta... Hold on. 99... No. Yes, it was the second time. I think I had met them at the symposium in New York in that January.
Right, yeah.
Just real briefly. But they definitely did not like me.
They don't like me either, so don't worry, you're in good company.
It was, well, I mean, I was a very big personality back then. I mean, that might be a polite way of saying. I've mellowed. And so, definitely, I met them there, and, so, they came over for the Paddy Crean event, and that was the next time that I met them. But I had never gotten to work with them. I'd never learned anything from them. The New York thing was an exhibition. And so I got to see stuff there. And really, we went because Paul was there. So Tim and I drove out with a few people and wanted to see him. And so it was at that Paddy event that I got to do a Spanish rapier class with the Martinezes. And, this was at the end of my work visa being up in Scotland anyway. So I'd been thinking about moving to New York as an actor. I'd been thinking about moving back to Minneapolis. And I took that class with the Martinezes. And at the end of the class, I shook their hand and I said, "Thank you, this is amazing. I'm going to move to New York and train with you." And walked away.
Let this be a lesson to the listener, right? If you go and you get a class that really rocks your world, it may have long-term consequences, like you would move across the country to some other place. And like I have a student in Helsinki who came to Helsinki for one of my week-long seminar things in about must have been 2010 or something, and met a girl, and they're now married with 2 kids in Helsinki. So this kid from Singapore, I say kid, he was a youngish man then, and he's still a fairly young man now. Yes, that one seminar, he's been in Finland for the last, I think, 15 years or so. Thanks to showing up to one class.
You never know.
It's a dangerous thing, showing up to historical swordsmanship events. It really is.
Very true.
Okay, so now you've been publishing books, and you seem to have specialized in producing sort of republications and translations of, should we say, 16th and 17th century works. Is that a fair?
I mean, you could say that. I would say that I have always pursued my passions with zeal. And so there really isn't a through line so much as wow, this is cool, and I'm going to keep digging into this, and I'm going to hate myself for it, and I'm going to get it done.
Right.
So the Capoferro translation actually started, I was working on that in the early 90s, mid-90s, because I had started off in stage combat, and then as I started to get into historical fencing, Capoferro was one of the few names that both worlds knew. And I was like, wow, this man's amazing. And if he's got that kind of legacy, I want to be able to understand what he was saying. And then as I started to get more into it, I was like, wait a second. Now, his contemporaries were translated in that century into other languages. And yet nobody has ever translated Capoferro into a foreign language. What is up with that?
Wow, it's crazy. Yeah.
Meanwhile, even in sport fencing worlds, which I know very little about, but I'd be in conversations, they would know Capoferro, and maybe not his contemporaries. So that just kept driving me to want to get a translation done. So I started when I was in university going to the Italian master's thesis students and saying, not only would this be an amazing thesis, I'll pay you. I mean, I didn't have much money, so maybe it was like $50 or something. But I was like, I'll give you something to do this as your project. And I had meetings with 4 or 5 different people because they thought it was a great idea. Then they looked at the text and went, oh no. And I was like, what? And that's when I realized I wasn't asking them to translate Italian. I was asking them to translate Shakespearean Italian. It is written the way Shakespeare is written. It's that time period.
Yeah, and also Capoferro is an astonishingly bad writer in many respects. I mean, there are Italian sources of that period, Giganti, for example, that is a breeze to translate. But Capoferro is twisty. He seems to think that no sentence is complete without at least 6 subclauses.
You want to get the whole understanding. No. So, yeah, I just, it was interesting understanding that. And then I was like, all right, we're going to have to do something. So I actually started, do you remember, I think it was called the Historical Fencing Translation Project? HFTP.
Yeah, something like that. I remember I backed it because I've got the sort of, what do you call it, the spiral bound photocopy of the translation, which is what us backers got because we got the translation, and then that got published by, I think, Green Hill Books.
Yep. So a bunch of people like you contributed $100 each to raise the money to pay a professional translator. Unfortunately, it was awful. The money got spent up on that awful translation based on really bad advice from the wrong people. And that landed me with a book contract already expecting a book and a translation that couldn't even get the numbers right at certain points, missed entire paragraphs.
Oh my God, yeah.
And left me up a creek without a paddle, and when asked for it to be fixed, was threatened with lawsuits for defamation. Wow. So that left me in a horrible position, and that is when Ray and Jeanette stepped up to help save me. I mean,
so they took the monstrously crap one and they tidied it up into something that could be published.
Oh no, it was so bad we threw it away.
Oh, so they just retranslated it entirely.
I sat down at that table with them, and we started a brand new translation. When we got through the first translation of it, then we started again. And I don't know why they put up with me. I really don't. Because I had this religious zealous to keeping every word possible. They're like, no, we can just say this. I'm like, no, you can't, because I don't want any interpretation. I want this to be a boring, literal translation of exactly what Capoferro said.
Which is actually impossible.
Absolutely.
I
mean, that's why I bring that up in the introduction to the Capoferro book.
Yeah.
It is impossible, and I wanted us to do as close as humanly possible.
Yeah, honestly, when I translate, for example, Fiore, I lean towards that end of the spectrum. So, like, if he puts the clauses in a certain order and it's not bad English to put them in the same order, that's what I'll do. And if a phrase is repeated in the text when it shouldn't be, I repeat it in the text with a footnote saying this is obviously a scribal error. But it's like, I want it so that someone reading it, as far as possible, can go word by word, phrase by phrase through the original and see it in English and match it up and go, oh, okay, he's translating this phrase as this phrase, and with absolute minimum sort of rephrasings. Because often the phrasings are almost nonsensical. Or they're some kind of colloquialism that, like Vadi has one where I'll throw you to the ground. You literally translate it like saying hello, come dire un ave, which means, basically in the time it would take me to say an Ave Maria, which means extremely quickly.
Right.
Right. So
I
if you and
love
I were
those,
going to
though.
meet for coffee, if you and I were going to meet for coffee and I was a bit late, I'll say, I'll be there in an Ave. Right. That's the expression. And it's that, but you have to translate what it actually says, and then footnote what it means in that sort of situation. I think so that the reader can see what the person said.
There were several of those in Capoferro that I loved going down that rabbit hole. The casting the visual rays, and then I went down this whole research to understand how they thought people saw in the 17th century. It was anyway.
Yeah, because Newton hadn't been born yet, and so he hadn't figured out the science of optics.
But I love those rabbit holes. Those are some of my favorite memories. And also, because it was a break. So basically we translated it 3 times. And we got up and we did every play and made sure that it all worked, and then got that translation out. But I really would have been lost without Ray and Jeanette doing most of the work. And then on top of that, they let my name is all over the book. I take all the credit. Again, don't know why they put up with me.
but this maybe explains why you then went with Angelo's School of Fencing, the 1787 English translation done in the period of the 1763 original in French. And then Vincentio Saviolo's Of Honor and Honorable Quarrels, which is already in English. And then McBane's Expert Swordsman's Companion, already in English.
So again, these are all like, if I'm being honest, the Angelo book exists because I needed an excuse to buy an original.
That's a good reason.
I wanted an original, and I was I need an original if we're going to have the art.
Right.
Which actually never manifested. I didn't buy an original till years after the book was published, and we were able to get the rights to images. So, but, I love the book, and I love what Jenna was able to add to it, and especially the appendixes. And then Saviolo only happened because Greenhill, Michael is amazing man. Love working with him. But he wanted me to write a book about dueling. He was like, we want to put out like a coffee table book about dueling. I was like, well, why would I do that? There are tons we could just republish. You don't need me. And then I was like, but you know what is interesting? The first English Code Duello. The first Code Duello written in English. Now that one's interesting, and it's an interesting guy that I'd been researching anyway, right?
Right.
Because why are we here? We're here because The Princess Bride, if we're being honest, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to know what Benetti's defense was, and that was some of my first historical research, only to find out there's no Benetti's defense that we know of. So
he was a fencing master, but there's no record of his actual method. Yeah.
Right. And
he never wrote a book, damn him.
It seems like he was pretty busy.
What, being a spy and a double agent and a triple agent and running a fencing school and fair enough.
Yep, then moving fencing school, then debtor prison and
am I right in thinking that you describe all the Bonetti stuff in the introduction to the Saviolo book? Yeah. I'm just floating that there so that people listening going, "Ooh, I need to know more about Rocco Bonetti." Know which book to go and buy, because this is what podcasts are for.
I was like, this is where I'm going to, and most of the holdup in getting that book out was I wanted to prove once and for all where Saviolo's school was located. Because up to that date, we had no idea, and every historical reference before my book is wrong. So I don't know why people keep spewing Aylward's stuff and all this. It's just wrong.
Yeah, think about Aylward. Now, we're talking about his English Masters of Defence book. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great book if you're not too worried about factual accuracy.
Right.
But it's a fascinating book. But oh my God, like everything he says about McBane is wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all just it's close. All of it's close.
Right.
But it's bizarre. It's like he never actually saw a book or something.
There's just, I find that from the Victorian era up through that time period, there's a lot of logic applied as fact. So they go, for Saviolo's school, for example, we know it was in the little street where the well is, and Aylward was able to find a well that was somewhere in the Blackfriars area, and therefore that's where his school was.
Yeah.
Never mind, we have other data points that go, that's way too far away to actually be where his school is. So,
and you did find it, didn't you?
Oh my God. I think I did. Because it was only in the 90s that they dug up this area and they found a little well. I think it was 92. There's this great law in Britain that would never happen in the US, where if you're going to build new construction, you have to allow them to excavate the area for a year or two before you can do that.
Yeah. If there's any reason to suppose there's an area of archaeological interest there, then you have to allow the excavation before you proceed. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we're not going to have that in America. There's nothing. 2,000 years old under whatever we're building. So, that's where they found this well, and it fits the criteria. It on a map from the time period, you can see it's in a little street. We know that that's where a well was, and it was within a bow shot, literally and figuratively, of Belsavage Yard. The only other data point that I couldn't find there is at the sign of the Red Lion.
Well, yeah, the Red Lion is the most common pub name in Britain.
Yeah, there's 7 pages of reference. Yeah, I went through all 7 pages, locating every one of them on a map to triangulate where they were in relationship to Belsavage Yard. 7 pages.
And pubs also change their names sometimes. so I mean, what was a pub? Also, pubs sometimes stop being pubs and start being something else. So yeah, I mean, it's tricky.
So what was magical? I'll just share this part of it. What was magical is that I was literally in the building of the Society of the Apothecaries, where I was doing this research to find this. When I'm actually figuring out these data points and the location based on the research that I went and pulled from the archaeology department, I was on the other side of the wall to where that little street is.
Wow.
When I figured that out. I'm in the northernmost part of the building, which is where that little street was. I was so eerie. Yeah.
Yeah. You can always, if you listen carefully, you can still hear the clashing of blades and Vincentio Saviolo yelling at his students.
Oh God, what I wouldn't give for a time machine.
Yeah. Now, just to, again, a lot of, I think most people doing historical martial arts now have started sometime in the last 10 years, right?
Okay.
Which is after so many treatises have become available, so much has been done. But when I visited New York for the first time as an adult in 2001, I was staying in your apartment on the northern end of Manhattan Island, and I took a gigantic pile of comb-bound photocopies to the local copy shop with your permission.
Of course.
And spent an absolute fortune getting the whole lot copied. And that was, at that time, probably the best best archive of historical fencing sources available outside of like specialist collections in posh museums that don't let you photocopy anything.
Right.
So how come you had this gigantic stack of fencing sources in your apartment in 2001?
So, obviously, I know you talked about Patry before. We would be nowhere without Patry Plugasi. A wonderful man, and he was the first one to go out and photocopy treatises and make them available for sale. So he had this web page, one page with a whole list and the cost for them, and I bought up almost every one of them. And I thought that what he was doing was amazing. And so this was what I was doing in 97, 98 before I came over to Scotland. So my mission upon getting over to Scotland was to build this collection. And so I was able to get into the archives at Leeds and start making photocopies. And so I quickly doubled my collection. And
they don't let you do that anymore.
Right. I feel like it was such a wonderful window of time because I had got connected with the curator, and he had been trying to get them to make one copy of every one of their books for archival purposes, right? To have them, to have that copy. And they're like, we're not going to spend the money on that. So I came in and said, well, I'm going to buy that. I'm going to pay for it. So he could go back to the council or whoever and say, no, it costs you nothing. This man's going to pay for them. So he made a copy and then made that second copy for me.
Right.
So,
and the first copy is expensive because it requires special scanning and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And you're dealing with a delicate book. But the second copy, you just take a stack of paper and run them through a photocopier.
So, yeah, and I have the credit card bills on this somewhere. It was not
Must have cost
pretty.
you a fortune.
So much. But we were so hungry for it. You remember what it was like. I remember in 97 sitting down with Craig Johnson from Arms and Armor, and we were like, look at this book. This is Egerton Castle, and he talks about all of these masters. This is an amazing history of fencing, because nobody had it, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to get these copies out of there, and then I was also able to work in a couple other libraries and get copies of them. I was able to get the copy of McBane when I was in Scotland, and that was huge. And then when I got back to New York, I started doing the same thing at the New York Public Library. So before Google Books ever came up, I had, and still have, hundreds of copies of treatises that I made available for sale, just like Patry did. I included Patry in my book list and pointed everybody to go to him if they wanted these books. You know, these are the ones that are available.
So you're adding to his collection, but you're not taking any of his business, because Patry was basically the godfather of historical martial arts, and we all worship him as an ancestor.
100%.
He sadly died in, I think, was it 2006? It was quite a long time ago.
Yeah, 5, 6, somewhere in there. I know we immediately at ISMAC, we immediately started doing fundraiser every year where we did different things to raise money to help his daughters in college.
Right.
So
yeah, I remember one of those auctions. I still have a dagger that I bought at one of those charity auctions.
Yeah, and I'll never forget shaving a tonsure in Stevie Fick's head.
That's right. It was people basically paid to see that happen.
Well, we paid to do it. Christy Sharon bet against me, and I was like, "You can go as high as you want. I am doing this. Right. I've known that man too long not to be the one shaving his head."
Excellent.
So,
so it's also, I think, maybe just worth reminding the younger listeners that digital photography didn't really become a thing until the early 2000s. And a digital camera from, say, 2003 was crap by modern standards. I mean, nowadays you can take your phone, point it at a book, go snap, 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 and photograph the whole book in 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. But back then, a camera that would actually take a decent digital photograph of a page was a professional level piece of gear, right? The commercial stuff it was rubbish. And phones did have cameras in like 2002, 2003, but they had, I think they generated something at about 15 kilobytes per picture, something like that. There were these tiny little postage stamp pictures that were, you could pretty much tell there was a person there, but that was about it. But yeah, so all this process of disseminating the treatises before the advent of all these digital scans and the World Wide Web getting a lot more efficient, it was all photocopies and photocopies of photocopies unto the nth generation.
Yeah, I just kept doing it because I wanted to get the word out there, you know? And the mission behind the motivation behind so many of the projects that I do, the seminars, the workshops, all of this stuff comes down to validity for this art. And what I always tell people is before I die, I want to overhear a conversation where somebody goes, "Well, I'm a martial artist," and the reply is, "Yeah, Eastern or Western?"
Oh, I've heard that already.
Well, damn it. Good. I'm glad you have. I haven't yet, but we're definitely getting there, you know, and I'm happy to see it. Like, people understand that we have a rich martial arts heritage in this European tradition. Yeah.
Now, you have your own book, Staging Shakespeare's Violence, and I must confess that I have not yet read it. Which is a shockingly bad behaviour on the part of a friend, I know, and even worse on the part of a podcast interviewer. But just tell everybody what it's about, and then we'll go into some detail.
Yeah. So for many years, I couldn't decide which I loved more: stage combat and fighting for stage and screen, or historical fencing. And then I realized there's a lot more similarities than anybody ever shared with me. And so I started to bring those two worlds together a little bit more and created the New York Combat for Stage and Screen as a company that grounds their fights in martial reality, and found other people along the way that shared that ideology, like John Lennox and Kyle Rowling, and
both of whom have been on this show, I must say.
Excellent. So that was kind of moving along. I was like, all right, there's a way to bring these two things together. Now, as a young fight director going into Shakespeare, it's extremely daunting sometimes. Because you just don't know the plays well enough, or God forbid it's a history play and you're like, who's this guy in York land? It's really hard to keep track of. And so for many years, I wanted a book like Staging Shakespeare's Violence. And so for another decade or so, I told every fight director I knew to go and write this book. And none of them did it. And so finally I was like, all right, it needs to get done. So I approached Seth Dewar, the artistic director of York Shakespeare, because he is one of the most knowledgeable Shakespeareans on the planet. He's also, he's a very kindred spirit in the sense that, and you'll appreciate this guy, right? He's unapologetically knows what he knows, right? So he's not going to be falsely humble. Right, and
it's so tedious and tiring with someone who's clearly got like decades of experience and stuff. It's like, well, no, you're an expert now. Just tell me how it is.
Yeah, right, and so that comes with also, like I know what I know, and I'm not going to apologize for knowing that. I'm very good at what I do. On the flip side, when I get into a situation where I don't know what I'm doing, I'm the first one to raise my hand and ask questions. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I know what that is. So, Seth is great that way, and he was always wonderful as a director and an actor to work with because he's very collaborative, but he has very strong opinions. And our opinions clash many times. But there's this old thing. It's called an argument. And again, I think we need to discuss an argument because people don't understand it. It is when two people who respect each other, and that's an important element of an argument, disagree. And then, wait for it, they actually throw out facts at each other and both listen. Yeah. And maybe even change their mind based on the information that the other person introduces.
Yeah.
So this old idea of an argument is something Seth and I do often. And so we made sure to include that in the book. So when you pick up Staging Shakespeare's Violence, not only do you get all of the violence in Shakespeare, you get Seth and I arguing with each other throughout the book. So we're color-coded because sometimes we agree, and when we don't, we both say our piece. Because I'm right, so is he.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of art.
Yeah, and when there isn't like a definitive fact that demonstrates one or the other, then yes, why would you? Like, I remember when my friend Stephen Hand, who's also been on the show, he came to do seminars for me in Helsinki. And we started with a sword and buckler workshop on the first weekend. And then he did a George Silver workshop on the second weekend. And throughout that sword and buckler workshop, I was sort of watching okay, I can see that. Oh yeah, that's interesting. And then for the next couple of days, we would be like discussing sword and buckler back and forth. And on the Wednesday night, we did a class for my students, where we taught the students what Stephen was going to change having seen what I do, and what I was going to change having seen what Stephen does, and where we still disagree. Mm-hmm. Right?
That's
and it was
awesome.
entirely collegial. Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. And it was like, yeah, okay, so we've met and we've compared our interpretation of whatever, and we've both come away with better stuff than we had before, but we're still different in these other areas. It was, it was lovely. And it was good for the students to see that disagreeing with someone does not indicate disrespect.
Right. It can be done respectfully, right? And it comes down to what is the goal, right? So when you're presenting this art, for example, I went and did a Capoferro seminar at a school one day of the two that I was there. And the lead instructor, after we were done with that workshop, shut down the rapier program. He said, I've got to start again from scratch. I'm not doing this anymore until I revamp it.
Wow.
I didn't ask that. I didn't, all I did was present Capoferro the way that I have pulled this out of the treatise. And so I, in turn, I think I was, anytime that I do a Capoferro seminar, I am presenting his words, and I'm always eager for people to bring up, well, what about this and what about that? So that I can say, well, here's here's what I found, and here's why I don't do that. But I
Yeah.
also, I'm done with a conversation. For example, there was somebody else, I think this was late 2000s, right? And the gentleman was big into Capoferro, and he went on guard, and his feet were at a 120-degree angle in the guard.
Okay.
And I was like, well, that's interesting. I was like, you can't really do that, though, because then there's no way to pivot your rear foot on the lunge because your rear foot's already in the position.
Right.
So you need your feet at a 90-degree angle in the guard so that you can pivot. And he was like, yeah, but this is more comfortable for me.
Okay.
I was like, all right, but don't teach that as Capoferro then.
Right, exactly. It's like, there's nothing wrong with teaching variations or adapting the art for the individual needs of a particular student. That's normal practice. But the book says this. We're doing this slightly differently for these reasons is fine, but you can't present something that's not, that you know to be not the book as the book. That drives me nuts.
Yeah, and so it was like at that point, that conversation is over for me because this isn't someone that's digging into the material. They're going on guard in a way that's comfortable for them. They're teaching their students that and calling it Capoferro. I'm like,
and also, it may not be
me.
comfortable for the students because for me personally, standing on guard with my feet at 120 degrees is horrible.
There's a reason he says to be at a 90-degree angle. Just saying.
That's right. Yeah, and it's funny though. I've watched Capoferro classes given where I've seen people are interpreting the turn of the back foot in the lunge differently to the way I do it. And I've had a perfectly useful discussion with the instructor about the difference. But the thing is, Capoferro doesn't say how to do it. He just says this is, and I think it's the letter M in his illustration of the lunge. Hang on one second. And of course, I'm just fetching my actual 1609 printed Capoferro. Oh, here it is. No, I beg pardon. It's L. It's L.
Yep, that sounds right.
Okay, listeners, I'm just completely ostentatiously and pridefully swanking about with my original Capoferro, which I said is printed in 1609 because this particular copy, Jared, this will blow your socks off.
What?
This copy of Capoferro has the colophon page underneath. Basically, it has it has a 1609 colophon page, right? That is 1609, MDC 1X.
All right.
And the Frater Gregorius Lombardelius, right, who is a professor in 1610, here he's only a doctor. He hasn't been promoted yet.
Oh, God. All right. Now. Hold on. Hold on, listener. This.
Jared is racing about in his house. I'm not sure what he's fetching, but it's going to be something to do with...
Yes, it is. Okay. But I'm taking it back downstairs before we look at this.
Welcome to the all-action version of this particular episode of the show. This is...
Leave it to the stuntman to add action into it. Okay.
Absolutely. We will get onto your stunt stuff in a bit.
I'm now opening my original copy of Capoferro.
Oh, good for you, sir. Good for you. Well played.
Which is definitely not as nice as yours. Okay.
My text says, Ego frater Gregorius Lombardelius de senis st. Doctor et consultor sanctissimae inquisitionis in civitate senarum vidi praesens opus, in quo nihil inveni quod sit contra fidem aut bonos mores, quare mihi videtur ut possit praelo mandari, imprimator fr arcang inqui senarum, Fabius Piccolomineus Vic, Cosmus Tallius audit. And then at the bottom it says, Senis anno ad nativitate Jesu Christi MDCIX. And then Venedatur in edibus nobilis viri Camilli Turi. Okay, for listeners, I will put pictures of my colophon page and Jared's colophon page in the show notes so you can compare for yourselves. But yeah, so the mystery is, why is this 1609 colophon page pasted into the back of my book? Because it's pasted over the original colophon page, which is I think the same as the 1610 one, but I can't actually see it because it would require me to actually be able to see through the paper, which I can't quite.
Huh. That's very interesting. 1609, so it's already done and then something changes. Huh.
So just to recap, so your copy has the standard 1610 colophon page. Yeah.
Yep, 100%.
And mine, I think, has the standard page, but the 1609 colophon page is pasted over it.
Which makes no sense.
None whatsoever. It would make more sense to be the other way around.
100% the other way around.
Right. But there's no question looking at it that it is not a forgery in any sense of the word. I mean, it's the printing is the same, the paper is the same, the manner of it being pasted down is correct for the period. I mean, it's all, yeah. So it is a mystery.
Yeah. So I was going to say, this is, for the listeners, this is a reason you need to buy the originals and not just the Google Books. Because, I'm serious, because you will get a glimpse into history that you can't know any other way, right?
Yeah, although, hang on, it's not strictly fair to require the listeners to go off and spend the cost of a small car on a book.
No, it's so stupid. Don't do that.
Very, very stupid. I've only ever done that 3 times, and I shouldn't. Right. And of course I can write it all off against tax, which really does help. And I think you're probably in the same position.
Yeah.
But there are places you can go where you can see these sorts of books. So, for example, if you're in the UK, the National Fencing Museum, run by Malcolm Fair, who has been on the show, has. Yeah, I mean, it was actually Jared. It was you that put me onto the National Fencing Museum. Thanks to you, I went there and my mind was blown. And then I went back with a friend, James Hester, who's also been on the show, and a good digital camera. And I photographed 25 of the best of the collection. And all of those photographs are generally available to the public for whatever purpose they want to put it to. So,
he's amazing. Yeah, I actually, we were having so I went there that night, or afternoon, and we got to talking and we were so engrossed that I didn't even realize I'd missed the last train. Neither of us did. And so I ended up staying the night. He was so kind to put me up because we were so back and forth, and his copies are so amazing.
Just beautiful books. So yes, there are places you can go to see them. And there are some of those places, like the National Fencing Museum, where if you behave like a reasonable person, there's a very good chance he'll let you actually handle them.
Yeah. It's only in handling different copies of the original books that you get these tastes of history. My copy has 17th century Spanish notation.
Wow!
And the only parts that they're really translating, this is just to help tell you how similar Spanish and Italian were, especially 400 years ago. They're more often than not, he's translating things that may be difficult, funny, like stringere, that may be difficult to understand.
How does he translate stringere?
Sea prima offendeben. It's like AFRSINDEBENIRAMEDIDA.
My memory's not good enough for that. Tell you what, Jared, I charge you in the name of all that is historical fencing to photograph every page with an inscription on it or an annotation on it and post it somewhere so that people can see it.
All right.
Right? Because that is useful. And do you have reason to believe that the annotation is period?
Just from the script. So I've shown it to several people who are familiar with handwriting, period handwriting. Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at this, it's definitely very old.
In which case, you have to photograph every page with an annotation. And
some of it isn't hard. And so I don't know why I initially was like, oh, it's just the hard concepts. But like on this page, instead of in duoi maneri, above that, he goes on dos maneras.
Right. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
In two ways.
So, yeah. Not sure.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's one of the reasons I like actual old rare books.
Yeah. And the annotations are just fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Now, I think this is probably getting a little frustrating for the average reader who doesn't have an original Capoferro sitting on their lap right now.
Is anybody still listening?
Probably not. So, all right. Tell us about fight direction and how you got into it.
Yeah. So when I was 15, I saw a human chess match at the Minnesota Renaissance Fair. And it's this ridiculous thing where humans are the chess pieces, and then it's all staged and choreographed, which you don't necessarily know at the time when you're a young man from a small northern Minnesota town. So instead of knight takes pawn, they clear the board and the knight fights the pawn.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so you get to see this big fight, and then whoever wins actually gets the square. So if the pawn somehow wins, it's all choreographed and always ends in a big melee.
Excellent. I
mean, I don't know how I got my jaw off the ground.
It does sound fabulous. The only way to play chess, really.
We should... Yeah, so I went up to one of the performers afterwards and was just saying how amazing it was, and they told me about stage combat. They're like, oh yeah, it's all choreographed. I was like, really? I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So I didn't know at the time that I was saying that. There's nothing where I was at, so I had to move down to Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I actually started training with the fight director that choreographed that, trained all year, and then was cast and actually performed in that very same chess match.
Wow.
I think 4 years later.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was so full circle. But again, I just couldn't get enough of it. And I actually ran into him again in New York here 5-7 years ago. He was in town teaching a seminar, Michael Anderson. Amazing man. And I didn't realize at the time that I think a chunk of my passion for historical fencing came from him. Because he was the one who had like Thibaut's diagram, and I remember him showing me that. He had it tattooed on his arm. Also, he showed me Capoferro. He was interested in these historical references also, and he started bringing in people like the first time I met Brad Waller was in 98, because Michael brought him into town to do a Marozzo Pressa seminar.
Cool.
So, yeah, I had no idea. I didn't realize until I saw him again how much of an impact he probably had in my direction that way. So I just loved it. I kept doing it. And when I got to New York, I trained here. Actually, when I was living in Edinburgh, if I wasn't fighting with you and the DDS or working at the old Waverly, I was on a train down to York, doing a BADC certification with Ian. I would take the train down to London and train with people down there. So like Richard Ryan and Brett Young. And I met people that have been lifelong stage combat friends down there, Kevin McCurdy. And so, yeah, I've just never stopped.
Okay, so what makes a good fight director?
For me, it is all about storytelling violence.
Yeah.
I think that violence is one of the most underutilized storytelling tools we have. And
Sure.
let me qualify that. I don't mean underutilized like we don't have a lot of action out there. Not what I mean. I mean that action is a way that we can reveal character in a way that words never can.
Right, yeah, someone who comes up behind somebody and punches them in the kidney is not the same as someone who comes up to the front of them and punches them in the face.
Exactly. Right? And making those character choices makes your character stronger. Sometimes just the threat of violence and the way that a character does that can reveal character. So I love, to this day, after over 25 years of doing it, I love exploring how we can express character through violence and make sure that the violence matches the tone of the piece. And that the violence comes from a place that the characters have to fight. And then it seamlessly flows out of that. So most of the time, I don't want anybody to realize I did anything. They should never stop and go, oh, what great choreography. Well, then I failed because they recognize it as choreography. They know they didn't really get slapped, but they should never stop to think about it.
Yeah.
Because they're so engrossed in the story. And that's what I love about the art. The other part of that I call action porn.
Yeah.
So, and as a performer, I love doing that. I love fighting for fighting's sake and then kind of tying a story around it. It's a lot of fun to do and it can be fun to watch, but you gotta know what you're going into. And that's why I call it action porn, right? If you pop in that movie because you really want to see the pizza delivery man deliver that pizza, you're going to be sorely disappointed by this film.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're in the mood for some action fun, great.
Yeah.
You're going to have a great time.
And you know, the quality of filmed violence in terms of like the balletic choreography has improved so much in the last 25 years. And like what the performers are able to do with these like amazing, like sort of jumping up in the air and get your legs wrapped around the person's neck and then flip them on the ground. Yeah. All that sort of stuff. It's fantastic. But I mean, none of it is how people actually fight.
No, not at all.
It just looks amazing.
And that's the beauty of that because we're able to do more with that, especially because of CGI. So we can be in harness and do a lot of wire work and do these crazy things. They can erase the wires in post-production. And yet there are also just some superhuman people out there that can actually do some of this stuff. But here you have to consider the world you're in. So if we're in a fantasy world, and I consider every Marvel film a fantasy world. Yeah. Now we can have this heightened violence, right? Yeah. And we want to see that. So as long as there are, and John Lennox wrote this years ago, 10 fight director rules, right? And those are just pretty solid as far as does the violence serve the story, right? And another part of that is, are we staying within the realm of the world that we're in? You shouldn't do anything that breaks the rules of that world. So as long as you continue to do that, it's fine, right? We know when you go into a Marvel movie, they're not going to bleed. That they're going to take beatings that no human could ever survive, even though there are human characters in there. No human could survive that, right? You think.
Yeah.
And then Jeremy Renner goes off and still lives after this snowplow incident, and you're like, all right, maybe the man could take that much beating.
It's funny because I actually get really bored in those incredibly long set piece fights. Like, I mean, like the Superman versus Batman one and whatever, and they're having this great big fight at the end. I was bored out of my skull.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I tried to watch the Justice League. I was like, everybody's raving about this 4-hour thing. It took me 5 days and fast forwarding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this is not working for me.
Yeah. But if people listening, if that's your jam, then enjoy your jam, and no criticism from us. But
100%.
As violence professionals in a way, I do find a lot of the stuff in the movies these days, it just goes on too long.
Yep.
Like fights shouldn't take that long.
I think, again, it depends on what is happening, right? If we go back to that Cliffs of Insanity fight, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's really long.
It's about 90 seconds or 2
purpose.
minutes. Yeah.
Still really long.
But it's still a couple of minutes. But by Marvel standards, that's a short fight.
Yeah. But here's the difference. Every layer, every 15 to 20 seconds of that fight, you're learning something new about the characters.
The characters, absolutely.
It's constantly revealing more about the characters.
Yeah.
And that's why you can have a 5-minute fight scene that is amazing and will keep you interested. But I guarantee you, the ones you're talking about that are not interesting to you have revealed no character within a 30 to 40 second chunk of that fight. You've learned nothing new about that character.
Yeah, it's just variations on throwing concrete at each other, basically. Right. Or throwing each other at concrete, either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now then you move into something like, have you seen the new John Wick?
No, I haven't.
Oh, so good.
Good? Okay,
yeah.
I'll watch it. I watched the first one, I loved it.
Yeah, John Wick 1, great. You can skip 2 and 3. They were wonderful. I had a good time with them, but they weren't the caliber of 1. And 4 is actually right up there with 1.
Okay.
Still not as good, but really, it was so much fun. But this is also going to be exhausting.
Yeah.
But I think that's the point. Like, you actually get to feel his exhaustion because you're exhausted. And that
I'm not sure that's what I want in a film. But okay, I'll give it a go. But you've actually done quite a lot of these stunts yourself. So
I've done a chunk. Yeah. So stage combat and actors fighting on film is different than stunt work.
Sure.
They're similar, but they're very different in the sense that for me, this is the way that I break it down now. If you're an actor fighting on film or stage or a stage combatant, when you're done with a fight, you should be in the same condition that you started in, just really tired, right? When you're a stunt person, you may be bruised, you may be bloody, but you shouldn't be broken.
Okay.
That's the rules. So I have taken bottles to the head, which actually, they're breakaway bottles.
Yeah.
They're synthetically made so that they look correct, but they're meant to break. Yeah. So a beer bottle, even a wine bottle, coffee cups I've done. None of those are fine.
Honestly, Jared, this explains a lot.
No, this is well after all the insanity. I was definitely dropped on my head. But on Bluebloods, I took a decanter to the head. Oh. And that, even though it's a breakaway piece, that has to be made thicker than a regular bottle. And so that one, that definitely pieces cut me up a little bit. So there's a little bit of blood, did it twice, little more blood. It's all superficial, and it was all just put a little ointment on it and move on. But in stage combat, that should never happen, right? Because these are the actual actors, the primaries that are doing it. So they should never be injured in any way. They should never be even bruised. But as stunts, we have to have this skill set to know how to take those kind of things, and then also build skill sets that stage combat people don't need. Like, I've been doing a lot of stunt driving now, which is so much fun. Fire burns. So you can see in my stunt reel, I've done burns. I actually did.
We'll put a link to your stunt reel in the show notes.
Okay, sure. You'll get to see. I don't know if I included it, but I did a fire sword fight against a staff guy, and then he lights me up with that. Falls. We consider anything that's lower than 30 feet to be a low fall. I'm only comfortable up to like 15, 20 feet falling off something.
So up to 30 feet is a low fall.
Yeah, a high fall is
30 feet is probably taller than my house. I live in a 2-story house.
Yep, that's a low fall. So high falls are 30 feet and higher. So
okay. So how do you survive a fall from, say, 20 feet?
It's important to land on your back and flat. So the two biggest dangers are called piking. So if your butt goes in first, because you're in kind of a V, or if you're not landing properly.
But presumably you're landing on something designed for that.
Oh, 100%.
Right, okay. I mean, if you were actually jumping off a house, you would want to land on your feet and hope for the best.
Yes and no. So if you're ever actually jumping off something and you need to save yourself, what you want to do is you want to land on your feet, but as the moment of impact, you want to go into a roll and dissipate that energy before, if that energy goes straight down, you're going to shatter your legs.
Yeah.
Pelvis, like everything's going to break depending on the height of the fall. But if you tap the ground with your feet and immediately go into a roll, then you dissipate that energy.
Right. Okay, but for stunt falls, you're landing flat on your back on a prepared surface.
Yep, on pads. Okay. So,
pads.
And based on the height of the fall, there's a minimum amount of padding that you're going to want. Okay.
What is the most dangerous stunt you've ever done?
The fall. I haven't done big, huge things, but the one that I did on a show was an 8-foot fall in an elevator shaft.
Oh, God.
And so the fall wasn't a concern. An 8-foot fall, not that big a deal. But because the elevator shaft is only 7.5 feet deep,
you can't fully spread out.
You cannot actually fall the way that you want to, or you'll crash your head into the wall.
Right.
So you have to know how to take some distance out so that you can fall in a straighter line. But if you take too much distance out, you fall straight on your head.
Okay.
So it was this balancing act where we had to go through the rehearsal, and thank God we did it on a stage. They built an elevator shaft to look like the location. And for filming purposes, they actually had a fake wall in the back. So for rehearsals, we were able to open up that wall and make our mistakes. And definitely, there were 2 of us that had to do that fall, and there would have been injuries. So we did the rehearsal and we figured that out. But then for shooting purposes, they had to have that wall closed.
Yeah,
so,
that's funny, because everyone would have thought, I mean, what's the most dangerous stunt you've ever done? Either a really high fall or being set on fire or something like that. But no, it's an 8-foot fall, but because of the constraints, you can't do the usual falling technique. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. So a lot of stunts, somebody once put it as calculated risk.
Right.
So we go in, we look at it and go, here's everything that can go wrong. We solve for all the problems that can be solved for. You don't do anything that you think is going to hurt you. Like nobody, no stunt person goes out there and goes, well, I'll do it anyway.
Yeah, it'll just be a broken leg, I'll be fine.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Right? But realizing that everything is lined up and as safe as possible and something could go wrong.
Sure.
And it's usually something unforeseen, right? Something
well, if you can foresee it,
calculate, Paul. Yeah. So.
Oh, okay. Now, we do have to discuss historical martial arts events because you're one of those few people who have actually put on historical martial arts events consistently over quite a long period. So how did the ISMAC, so the International Sword Fighting and Swordplay and Martial Arts Convention begin?
Sword fighting, you're right.
Sword fighting, I was right. Yeah, okay.
Yep. So, the very first, so if we take people back to, I think 95 is when Ken Franger started the Western Martial Arts Yahoo group.
Okay.
And that's how a lot of us met first. That's the first time I talked to Stefan Dieck, Stephen Hand, William Wilson, a lot of these people that I started to get to know, and we were comparing, talking. It was a great forum. And so through that, Greg Melee, Mark Rector, everybody was on this. And I think it was through that forum that Greg decided to have the Chicago Swordplay Guild gathering in 1999. And this is what we now look at as the first WMAW.
Yeah.
Didn't have the title at the time, but it's definitely the first time we all got together in person and got to meet and fight and learn. And there were already some interesting, colorful folks there that have long since gone. So, but yeah, it was a wonderful event. And one of the people that I met there was John Lennox. And you cannot imagine my surprise to find somebody else who was also a stage combat person, into historical fencing, and thought that the martial integrity of a fight mattered. You shouldn't just be making up fantastical stuff. Like, let's actually ground it in reality. So we connected right away, and we had such a great time at this event that we're like, this is great. We should do something like this, but also something like Patty Creen. So the Patty Creen event was a stage combat event that included historical martial arts. But we wanted to do, and the WMAW was a historical martial arts event. So we wanted to do... We wanted to do kind of the flip side of the Patty Creen coin and have a historical martial arts event that had stage combat as well. And that's where it started, because John said, well, I teach at a college, I could get us space. And I said, well, I know the historical fencing people that I would want at an event, so I'll do the teachers, I'll create the schedule, you figure out the space, you make sure we can do this, and then we can have an event. And it did. It did happen. It was wonderful. It's funny to think of it now, because at that time we had 2 tracks of classes. So when you came, you could choose class A or B.
Wow. Revolutionary.
Crazy, right? Just to fast forward to CombatCon now, you can take 11 classes at the same time, typically, or be in tournaments, or do that. It's just such a different world. And so we did ISMAC that way for, I think, 3-4 years, where we were bringing the worlds together. But really, the stage combat and stuff like that, it just wasn't sticking and wasn't fitting as well. So I think it was around 0304 that we started to concentrate just on European martial arts.
Right. Yeah. Because I remember 2001, I had just started my school and I thought I need to get out there a bit. And so I contacted you long after the event was basically already organised. Because it was in July, I think, and I started my school in March. So I probably contacted you in like April or May and said, Jared, can I come and teach a class at your event, please? And you were like, well, Guy, our budget is done and dusted, so we can't give you any money for flights and stuff. But if you get here, you can definitely teach a class. So I'm like, right, fine, okay. So I flew to New York, and that's when I got your photocopies and whatnot. And then I went to Lansing and had a fantastic time. And at the end of the event, you came up to me and said, Guy, we actually made a profit. So to help you with your flights, here is our profit. And it was $50. Thank you, Dad.
Yeah, it was, I mean, my sole
great.
goal was, I wanted to take care of all the instructors. There just wasn't ever any money in these things. And
yeah, no, sure. But actually, one thing that Ismac was sort of absolutely brilliant at was you guys looked after us instructors superbly well. Like that one time when you guys, you had sort of polled the instructors, we were all in a room together, and the organisers were like, okay, so what can we do to make this better for you guys? And I just said, well, actually, I need someone to carry my bags and a concubine. And so the next time I went to a class, somebody came and said, Mr. Windsor, I'm going to carry your bag. So he carried it to the next class. And then when I got to my hotel room that night, there was a fluffy sheep in my bed.
we aim to please.
You took me at my word, just about.
Yeah, I think it was that same year somebody said a cappuccino maker. And the next year, we had a cappuccino maker in the green room.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff we got up to in the evenings are my favorite memories.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many of those should be aired, but there were definitely pranks of a legendary level.
Yeah. The pranks, I mean, that is a whole show. But I just remember making up a song about you while I was drinking.
Okay.
And I only got the one verse out, which was something like, this is a song about Guy. And then I cracked up laughing because then I had to explain it to everybody. I was like, you see, it's funny because his name is Guy and he's a guy.
Oh, and he's the British Finnish guy.
Oh, that's what it was. It was the British Finnish guy. Yes, that was the song.
And for some reason, you found that hysterically funny.
Yep.
I think I'm not sure how much company you had in that.
Oh yeah, probably very little. But I also don't remember noticing.
But I also seem to remember there was some fencing with sharps in the hotel lobby at one point.
Sharps? No, not that I recall.
No, not sharp swords, but like 19th century sharps where you have like a 1 centimeter blade sticking out the end of your foil.
Oh no, I think it was thumbtacks.
Thumbtacks, there we go, that was it.
Yeah.
Stick a thumbtack on the end of a foil and play with that.
Through a rubber button. Yeah, I can imagine people doing that because we were also doing the horse and rider single stick.
Yeah. And the but more seriously, I remember John did a pirate combat thing on an actual ship.
Yeah, because
which is in the middle of Lansing.
Yep. Yeah, he wanted to do boarding actions, and I was like, yeah, but it's not boarding actions if it's not on a ship. You have to get a ship. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then he went out and he got an actual boat, big boat that does events down the river. And they let us come out there and do the whole boarding actions class on a boat that was moving down the river. Amazing. Genius.
That's genius.
We tried to approach the Treasure Island in Vegas to do the same thing in CombatCon. Like they didn't return our calls. No, they didn't return our calls.
Okay, so Jared, what is the best idea you haven't acted on yet?
The second volume of staging Shakespeare's violence.
Okay. What is left to say?
Well, it's a 2-volume series, so 20 plays are in this first volume that's out, and we have 20 more to do.
Ah, okay.
So my co-author has done all his work, and I'm driving him insane with taking little chunks of my part of it out. I am way behind deadline.
Right.
Which is part of the course for me.
Well, I mean, you do seem to get quite a lot done. I mean, you have like several books out, and so it's not like you can't finish things. So what's stopping you finishing this one?
It is a lot of it is the focus on stunts right now.
Okay.
That's actually been paying off, and the training time. I'm training with a group of stunt people now where, I mean, when you can see palpable growth every month. I can look at a video from just a month ago and go, wow, I'm so much better, and I still have so much to do. That excites me. Yeah. I learned a very valuable lesson in COVID, that I am more of an extrovert than I realized. I always identified myself as an introvert, right? I love my friends, the people that I already know and that I'm comfortable with. Small groups, wonderful. Big groups, not so much. Strange being a performer. You'd think I would love a stage. But
sure.
I don't. But what I realized that I missed was the process of getting it, of learning. And I realized that that's what I love about being a teacher. I love that moment where a student gets it and they've grown and they're better at it because of that. And then I realized I don't care which side of the coin I'm on. I love that experience as a teacher, but I love that experience as a student when I'm the one having that growth. So there's a lot of that right now. CombatCon has just grown into this big beast. So many heads and so many things that need to be done. So that takes up a lot of time. And then, these other really interesting ideas come up and I have to say yes. So,
okay.
Yes. For example, the week before CombatCon, Simone Belli, Italian stunt coordinator, and I are going to work with Anthony DeLongis, and we're doing a week-long Old West stunt experience.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to be living and training at the top of a mountain in California for a week. At the end of the week, we'll be filming some stunt shorts. Simone had this idea, and I was like, yeah, I have to do that with you. That's wonderful. Let's do it. Yeah. But then coordinating that, setting up the schedule, my stage combat company here in New York, we're now running 4 classes a week. We have a summer intensive coming up where it's a week-long training that culminates in live performances in New York City.
You're not going to be doing any writing during that period.
So, yeah, basically from July 6th. Oh, July 6th? I think we haven't solidified this, but speaking of this art changing people's lives, a pair met in my fencing class 13 years ago, and they just reached out because they're now getting married.
Oh, bless.
They asked me to officiate the wedding.
Oh, wow. Well, fantastic.
Yeah, and it lands perfectly. It's the day before I leave. And then I'm gone for like 5 weeks. So
perfect.
Yeah, so that's definitely getting in the way. I have about 1 million other ones. If I had a month and I could, the second book was done. One of the projects that I want to dig into, because my master's thesis for the Martinez Academy was on Degrassi's system.
Okay.
And so what I love about that period, and I want to delve into so much more, is that era of Sword. So comparing his approach and then, going right down the line with Vigiani, Del Gocchi, Morozzo. Those are the big ones that I want to really do a deep comparison and contrast and,
So there's actually quite a lot of best ideas you haven't acted on because you've got too many things that you are acting on.
Yeah, and that's what makes all of them take so much longer.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so if I was to hand you $1 million or similar enormous sum of imaginary money to spend improving historical martial arts worldwide, how would you spend it?
I even had time with this, and there's just too much.
Okay.
One of the things that I find interesting, what I would love to get back to, I would definitely, part of the money would go into, like the social media platform you just built.
Yep.
I think is brilliant.
Good.
Right.
I'm glad you like it.
Goes back to this
Let me just say, Jared is talking about swordpeople.com, to which, of course, all listeners are sword people and therefore should join. Just saying. Carry on.
Because the idea is to try to get back to what we got to experience with these kind of forums early on.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was civil discussion and human beings who are actually interested in the information and know what they know and know what they don't.
Yeah. And the two keys to that is there's no anonymity on the platform. You don't have to use the name that's on your driving license, but you have to use a name that you are known by in the community. So if you have an SCA name, you can use that, for instance. But people have to know who they're talking to. And there is an absolutely zero tolerance for any kind of misbehavior. And because it's my platform, I can just, if I need to, I can just throw people off and there is no recourse. There is no mercy. It's like, you behave like a dick, you're gone.
Yeah.
As yet, it hasn't happened. I have had to ask a couple of people to actually put their names instead of just their initials on their profile. But those are the only things that have come up. And, and a couple of things, somebody who's using English as their second or third language has said something in a way that could be read as a bit unpleasant, but with a bit of context or whatever, it's clear they weren't trying to be a dick, so that's fine.
Right.
But it's like moderation, active human moderation, and no anonymity, and suddenly people behave like nice people.
Yeah. It's funny. I just saw this quote, and I love it so much. So simple. But it said, "Your beliefs do not make you a better person. Your behavior does."
That's good. That's very good.
And that's it.
Boom.
Getting back to where people's egos are not a part of the discussion, where it's about the information and the goal is to learn, not to showboat, not to aggrandize, right? So if everybody has that goal, personally, I'm interested in more specific individual training times. So like I was saying, what I would love to have and create these environments for people that are well versed in a subject to get together and compare notes and just be a part of that, right?
Sure.
And if it's on a subject that I do know a lot about, then I'll be a literal part of that.
Right.
But like I was saying, I love learning. And
so you'd use the money to sort of organize, amongst other things, you would some way of supporting more advanced practitioners to get together to actually advance the art.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Because if you go back, I started running major events in 2000 with ISMAC, and it's 2023, right? I'm still not good at it. I've just learned a lot along the way. But the goal has always been to increase exposure to the public about what we do.
Right.
And that's why ISMAC had to morph into CombatCon. We needed a bigger platform, a bigger stage, because that growth potential had kind of fizzled off, even though it was a wonderful event. So now we've got this big thing in Vegas to help spread the word. Now, I used to think I just want everything translated. And now I understand I don't want everything translated. I want everything translated well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad translations being done and put out there now, and then people going
and some of them are
that.
contemporary. I mean, the translation of Degrassi into English in 1570, was it?
Yep.
It's when you compare it to the original Italian, it's like, oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it stood as Degrassi for English speakers for 400 years.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it would be about at this point the explosion has happened. And so now I think it's time to get back down to curating and cultivating the material so that we don't end up doing what the Victorians did, where it's fine if it's hearsay. People think that they are doing a system of fencing because they're watching 5 different people's videos on it who all agree, and then that must be the answer. Right. And now they're engaging in arguments without ever opening a primary source.
Yeah.
So, no, we have to get back to actually having that knowledge and engaging with that foundation under you.
Yeah. Getting back to the original sources. Okay.
Yeah, that's what makes it historical.
It's the H, isn't it? It's the H in historical martial arts.
So if you've gotten your information from Google and YouTube, you're not doing a historical art until you've done that digging.
Or you might be doing a historical art, but there's no way to know.
Yeah. And again, it's not a judgment when I say that, right? That's part of what I love about CombatCon. There are tons of things happening there that I'm not interested in, personally. Right. But I love that people are. And what I really want is for everybody to find their expression, right?
Right.
If you want to fight in tournaments and you want to win, no matter what the treatises say, you're not interested in that, great. Go and compete because you know yourself.
We've had guests on the show who are tournament fencers with no real interest in historical sources, and people who are very much into the test cutting side of things, and people who are very much into the stage combat, but not so much the historical stuff. We're all, at the end of the day, sword people, and we overlap in all sorts of areas. And I think if focusing on to my mind, it boils down to training standards. Are you describing what you're doing truthfully? Mm-hmm. Right? So
do you know that what you're doing is what you're doing?
Right. So someone's doing SCA heavy combat and they say, I'm doing SCA heavy combat. It's true. Right. If, not that I've seen this, but if just as a hypothetical situation, they are doing their armoured fighting with a rattan stick in the SCA fashion, and they present that to the public as actual medieval combat, that's where I would have a problem.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is a different thing.
For me, what I've found for me, especially at CombatCon, there's so many different kinds of people, and what I realized is that if you're walking around and you think you're cool because of your sword geekery, you're already wrong. We are all just geeks who take this very seriously. Like my traditional martial arts that I teach and train people all the time, I take very seriously when we're training.
Right.
And I'm extremely passionate about that. But it doesn't make me cool.
No. It just makes you a fan, basically.
So
it makes you a Capoferro fanboy, is what it does.
And so what we have this event at called the Time Travelers Ball. Is our big party at CombatCon on Saturday nights. And what I love about that is that is the time when everybody comes and sees that they're all just passionate geeks about what they are. And at our core, that's our similarity. That's where we're all the same. And I don't care if you hit people with steel or plastic that lights up.
Right.
Like, you're just a sword geek, and that's cool if you've embraced that.
I think that's a brilliant place to finish. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jared. It's been great talking to you, as always.
Thank you. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. You can find the episode show notes at swordschool.com/podcast, where you will find transcriptions, photos, videos, and links for this episode. You can find a direct link to the show notes for this episode in the description. Join us next week for another cracking conversation. See you then.